because they don't speak, they don't reflect our values. We're in a very intolerant society right now. So if you're different, you're not like me, okay, I will not tolerate you. I will make your life absolutely miserable because you should be like me. Okay. Well, that makes a bit of a challenge for us. Because, you have your values, your sense of identity, your religion, your culture, your perspective on the world, and are you and I expected to betray who we are in order to be able to relate to this other person who says, I'm a minority of such and such, and you should be thinking in these ways because this is real social justice. Yours isn't social justice. Oh, okay. It's a barrier. It's a barrier to our being able to empathize with. It's a barrier to our being able to understand. It's a barrier to our being able to communicate, to get across to people, to touch people. Okay. Because if we have to pass a certain test of orthodoxy of theirs versus yours, theirs versus mine, okay, that's a wall that stands between us. So this is a challenge that today we need to be conscious of. Because here we are, our job is to be therapists. Well, it says here, as therapists, we are to relate deeply to people and their issues in context imbued with these conflicting social forces for us and for them. So now we have to elevate our consciousness when we work with our clients and pay attention to their cultural context, the social forces in their lives. We can only do that, I am arguing, okay, if we do that about ourselves. In the same way that we understand what it is to suffer the loss of a lover, if I have experienced that, I'm more likely to be able to understand you when you come in and you're crying about the loss of your lover. Okay? I know what that's like. I know something of what that's like. Okay. Same thing has to be true in terms of the cultural, social piece. Okay. That we need to say, well, what does it matter? Well, I learned something about myself when they asked me that questionnaire in Spanish, and I suddenly responded, okay, with a vulnerable side of me that I didn't know existed. That part was hidden from me. I had done that to myself, trying to adjust to American society. At home, it was all my own culture. And I went to school and I learned how to manage in school and do okay in school. Okay? But in the process of doing that, okay, I separated what I learned at home about who I was from what I learned of myself outside in the world. Okay? And the two didn't mix. So I just shut this part of it off when I went into this other world where I was a professional, where I had to learn how people, Americans are rude. Latin people tend to be more polite. Americans go right to the point, and Latin people tend to say it in many more words, a little more flowery, a little more sensitive, a little more respectful. There are differences. Well, I separated that in myself. If you and I are not conscious, not only of our psychological stuff, emotional stuff, but also our cultural stuff, if we're not conscious of that, if we're not in touch with that, we're not going to be able to relate that well to our client stuff. Right? If you have any questions, by the way, or you want to argue with me about something, just raise your hand and we'll talk. Okay, key challenge in the therapeutic relationship for minority therapists. What is that key challenge? To begin, there is one paradoxical principle that has to be part of the answer. Okay. Why is it paradoxical? Well, that is the call for therapists to identify with their clients and at the very same time to differentiate from their clients. Okay. We have an intimate connection that we must have with our clients and their issues. And we're supposed to make that connection, however different and divergent they may be from us. Well, let me go on to the next, and then we'll talk about what we mean by identification and differentiation. Okay, let's talk about identifying with our clients. Putting ourselves in our client's shoes. That's the first thing. We look to resonate with the humanity common to all of us, however great the differences are between us and our clients, their issues and ours. With all of the divisions in our society today, you will hear people saying, what can they understand about me? He's never been a Puerto Rican, has no idea what it's like to be a Puerto Rican, raised in New York, and la da 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 da. Well, we bleed like they bleed like we bleed, and there is a common core there of our humanity. Okay. And if you do some of the reading on race relations, you will see people who will emphasize there is no common element, or whatever the common element is, it's really a minor thing. They emphasize difference. You've got to be like me, my race, my culture, in other words, to really understand it. Okay, we're separating ourselves from one another. Again, this is an obstacle to the intimacy of the therapeutic relationship. Because if we're going to have that relationship, if we're going to empathize, it really means, in some way or another, that when our client speaks, when our clients present their issues, okay, that we're walking in their shoes with them and we're feeling it, we're sensing it, we're intuiting it. Okay. We know something of what it's like because we're opening ourselves to enter into their world. Okay. Then we have here our personal openness. Well, we relate to the human struggles through the core signature themes of our human woundedness. Example, low self-esteem, difficulty with emotional intimacy and commitment. Well, these may be my issues, right? This signature theme thing is something that I invented a little phrase for us. What's my premise? What I'm suggesting is that everyone here has a particular issue that is their particular issue, their own. Okay. That because of what we were born with biologically, who our parents are, what our culture is, what our life experiences are, okay, out of all of that, okay, you and I have particular problems. Some of us tend to be depressive. Some of us tend to live anxious all the time and uptight. Some of us tend to have to be very controlling. Some of us are really terribly insecure. We may look okay, but inside we say, I'm not worth anything. Nobody really loves me. Every one of us has a dominant issue. Okay? That's with us and that will be with us to the day we die. I call it our emotional DNA. Okay. We have many different issues. Life is very complicated, but I am suggesting that everyone here has something that they always struggle with. It's always there if we really pay attention to it. What's the importance of that? The importance of that is that that's true also for our clients. Okay. And if you want to understand your clients, and you want to be able to relate to who they really are and what they really struggle with, you go looking for that signature theme. You go looking for that core issue of theirs. Okay? They'll present this situation, they'll present that situation, but you'll find, oh, this person doesn't do intimacy no matter what the relationship is, no matter what the situation is, whether they're at work, or they're with a spouse, or whether they're with buddies. Okay, they always hold themselves in reserve. Okay? And they must control the social situation, the relationship. Why? Because they feel very vulnerable, they don't feel like they're worth a whole lot, and they're always worried they're going to get hurt, they're going to be rejected, they're going to fail, they're not going to be good enough. Okay? So they tend to be controlling, and they tend to be closed. And that affects every aspect of their lives. So yes, we need to pay attention to the issue they're presenting. We need to understand as much as we can about who they are, but we also need to be paying attention to, can I identify what is particularly characteristic about the issues that this person has? How do we know about that? We know about that if we know about that in ourselves. You're going to be hearing from me the same thing over and over again. Okay? Is that it's going to be very difficult for you and for me, okay, to be able to relate, understand, really grasp what somebody is going through if we don't understand that and get in touch with that within ourselves. You know, it's like the physician who is young, healthy, never been in any real pain, and then has patients that come in speaking to their pain, to their hurt, to how limited they are in their lives. Well, you can understand it through your head, but it gets a little more difficult to understand it with your heart if you haven't been through something of that yourself. And if you've been through something of that yourself and you're willing to be with it and allow yourself to remember it and feel it, you have something that works for you. Okay. They're derivatives of that signature theme. So that I call the signature theme, for example, the low self-esteem. Because of my low self-esteem, I live in fear of rejection. So the core issue is the low self-esteem. The fear of rejection is the derivative issue that I deal with. And from that, I then also may become very controlling in social relationships because I don't want to be vulnerable and I don't want to be hurt. All base coming from the root, which is the low self-esteem, which went on to fear of rejection, which went on to I'm going to protect myself so that I don't get hurt. Right? The challenge for us as therapists, we have to be able to identify with our clients, to get into their shoes when they tell us their story. That's why in so much of therapy, people say you can't just do therapy as a conversation. My thing is, therapy is an experience. It should be an experience and not a conversation. If you know a little bit about structural family therapy, one of the things that I have done many years of, they talk about enactment. You got a problem, your family's got a problem. Okay, let's talk about that problem. Why don't you talk with each other about the problem? Okay, let's try to work this thing out. And you get them engaged with one another, dealing with that problem, and then people start getting upset, and they get anxious, and they get into power struggles. They start living what they struggle with at home, they start living it in the room with you. So what you then have a chance to is you have a chance not only to observe them struggling with that pain and all the trouble that it's causing them, you also have a chance to get in there with them and feel what's going on between this couple, feel what's going on within the family. You're not just hearing a report from them about what happens. You're hearing it, but you're also now experiencing it. Right? And if you're going to identify with them and you can get into, well, what of this have I experienced in my life, with my parents, with my spouses, with my lovers, with my friends, with people that I work with, in terms of relationships? Do I see some of that in that I have? Do I see some of that in what they're experiencing and how they're experiencing it? It gives me the inside perspective. I can now feel it, I can now see it through my own pain, through my own failures, through my own struggles. Okay. Right. Okay, then there's differentiation. You all know who Murray Bowman is, I hope, by this time. All right. Okay, Murray Bowman based his whole therapeutic model on achieving differentiation, which is a way of saying, you know, being your own person, so that you can go back and visit with your family and you're not reacting to your mother now that you're 28 or 30, you're not reacting to her like you were reacting when you were 5, 6, or 7. Now you're your own person, your own independent person. And you can see where she's coming from when she tries to control you, and you don't get all worked up and angry and start fighting her, because you don't have to fight her, you're an adult now. Okay. If you're not differentiated, which as soon as she starts to get controlling, you're going to start fighting back the way you did as a kid. Okay, and then you regress, and then you're a mess, all right? Okay. So striving to resolve for ourselves, to take ownership of who we are, resolved and unresolved issues, okay? We're talking about our personal identity, race, gender, culture, that it's, I'm just repeating myself here, but this is what differentiation is about, is that I have to take ownership of who I am, not just emotionally, not just in terms of my age, not just in terms of my looks, but in terms of my own personal struggles and vulnerabilities. That I say, this is all me. And our tendency, because we have an idea that we should not be weak, that we should not be uptight, that we should be whatever, you know, to be able to take ownership, say, this is what who I am. This is really who I am. Maybe I'm not as good looking as I'd like to be, you know. Maybe I'm not as smart as I'd like to be. Maybe I'm not as artistic as I'd like to be. Maybe I'm not as self-confident as I'd like to be. Well, if that's true, then that's who I am. And can I accept that? Can I accept me? Can I love me and embrace me? Okay, and if these are issues that are getting in my way, and then I work on that, not with the expectation that I'm ever going to become perfect, but I got to work with that so that I can live with myself, okay, and be fully myself, and not have to lie to myself and lie to other people, hide a part of myself when I'm in intimate relationships, so that I never have a really truly intimate, committed relationship with somebody because I'm too busy covering up my, quote, weaknesses. Okay, but always anxious that they're gonna, if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me. Okay, how many of us have said that to ourselves, or have that feeling? So I have to behave in this way in order to be loved, in order to be liked, in order to be admired. Okay, so we're lying to ourselves and we're lying to other people. All right. If we're going to be a differentiated person, a person I am who I really am, and I take ownership of that, we have to be honest with ourselves, embrace it, and find the value and the good in that. Okay. What I also suggest with this is that this doesn't mean that we then get complacent about the issues that we have. It doesn't mean that says, well, you know, I tend to have a really bad temper because I just don't like to be controlled. I always fought with my mother and father about that. Well, if I got a bad temper, tough, you know, that's who I am. Well, tough, that's who I am, then I'm going to have trouble in my life and relationships, and I deserve all the trouble I get back. Okay. But if I say to myself, okay, this is something I got to work on so that it doesn't rule my life, I can struggle with it, it's a problem for me, Okay, but I want to take responsibility for it. I want to take ownership of it. I want to try to deal with it. Okay, and I'm committed to doing that. Okay, that's then a path of growth, a path of change, without denying that we're not perfect. And again, though, because if we're talking about relating to people who are different from us, okay, relating to people who are strangers to us, okay, how do we get really close and connected with them and not lose ourselves? The only way to do that is by knowing who you are, being in touch with who you are, taking ownership of who you are, valuing yourself, and making the best of who you can be. Okay? All right. And I put in there power, responsibility we have for our own growth and changes, our autonomy, our free will to act for ourselves. You know, if we spend our time saying, the reason I'm like this, I'm screwed up, is because of my parents, or the reason I'm screwed up is because of society, and that's where the emphasis is, then we don't take ownership of our issues, we don't work on our issues, okay, and we just spend our time blaming them. We don't change, we blame them. We blame them even better, so they can be really righteous, okay, but we stay stuck in something that is not good for us. Right? Observing and working directly and through ourselves. Well, in terms of differentiation, when it comes to our work with clients, okay, we need to be able to do two things at once. Right? We need to be able to get into their shoes, into their experience. That's the identification piece. As professionals, okay, we also need to be able to stand outside of that relationship and analyze it, understand it, decide how we want to relate to them, decide what kind of intervention we're going to use. Take enough distance from it so that we can understand the problem that they have and analyze it and make some sense out of it so that we can then strategize what we're going to do as a professional. So we need both to be able to merge with them and at the same time to stand outside and observe them. And even observe ourselves in relation to them. Okay. Because then we'll learn from that. And what I'm suggesting to you is that this is something that does not come naturally. This is something that you cannot take for granted that you have. Okay? Because I've worked with researchers who are brilliant researchers, and they asked me to supervise them to be clinicians. And I have remembering some of the experiences that I've had, and they were much smarter than I am. Much better at analyzing what's going on than I am. They couldn't relate to a client in an intimate way, in a real way, if their life depended on it. They could tell me all the things that they saw, they could analyze it, they could put it all together. They couldn't open themselves up, okay, to really feel what that person was feeling, to let go of control. And to take that person in so that they could be disturbed by that person, they could be seduced by that person, they could be made anxious by that person. Okay? So they could experience these feelings and say, oh, so this is what's coming from that person. Okay? We need to be able to get that deeply connected and be enough outside so that one, we can experience the person, and two, we can analyze the person. The differentiation comes from being able to do that. Okay? And as therapists, we need to be able to get to that place. What am I suggesting here? Okay? What I'm suggesting here is that these things don't come naturally. Okay? These things, we need to be able to do it, and we can be trained to do it. Okay? So that we do it better. Okay? Okay, well, now we're getting to what it requires of us. Okay, conditions for mastery of self. But this is what we're working for. We're working towards, if I'm going to be a therapist, I must not only learn the methods, learn the techniques, okay, I need to be able, when I'm engaged with the clients, okay, to create a new experience for them. A new experience that will open them up to and motivate them to want to change and take the risk and do the hard things that it takes in order to change. Okay, and they can't do this by themselves, they have to do this with us. Right. So, well, they can't do it with us if we're not accessible to them. Okay, if we're not really present with them. So what are we asking in terms of training therapists? We're asking for self-awareness. Okay? And this isn't just a, I've got to have a course where I do my family of origin thing, and I find out who my ancestors were, where they came from, who was a drunk, who wasn't a drunk, and so on and so on. I'm talking about that when you and I are in session, face-to-face with our clients, okay, that we are aware of ourselves. That we know this is what I'm bringing into this situation. Okay, this client that I have intimidates me. This client that I have is smarter than I am, richer than I am, bigger than I am, better looking than I am, okay, and I'm just feeling kind of really insecure. Okay. We need to be able to feel that insecurity. We need to be able to be conscious of that insecurity. We need to be able to not run away from that insecurity. And so that when we're feeling it, we say, all right, I know I'm insecure, but I don't normally feel this insecure. You know, so what am I getting from this person? What is this person doing? Is this person doing something to make me feel insecure? And if this person is doing something to make me feel insecure, I'm learning something about this person. And what's behind it? Is this person trying to intimidate me in order to have control of this situation? Is this why he's having trouble having a relationship with his wife, having a relationship with his kid, because he always needs to be in control, and he's doing it with me and I'm experiencing it? Well, I will know that if I allow myself to experience it. Okay? But I need to know me, and I need to know what my issues are. I need to know what my vulnerability is. Okay? And then self-access. So that when I'm in the session with my clients, I have to have the ability to be in touch with my inner reactions in the therapeutic now moment, right at this moment. Okay, I need to be in touch with what's going on with me. Am I getting tense? Am I withdrawing from this person? Okay, am I trying to be seductive with this person so I can control this person? Okay, I need to be aware of me, okay, the good me and the bad me. Okay, that needs to be accessible to me. And then there are two ways that one does this. You know, there's one that we have a reaction with our clients. With this particular person, I immediately get uptight. Okay, oh wow, okay, why am I getting uptight? This person is just getting too much trying to get into me too much, trying to be too controlling of me, so I'm closing up. All right, let me pick up, I'm getting uptight. Yeah, you know, I would love to say that I'm so so thinking well of myself, so self-confident, that nobody can intimidate me. Well, if I need to lie to myself and play a game with myself, I am now closing myself off to important information, which my reactions will give me. My reactions matter. Okay, my spontaneous reactions matter. Okay, the thoughts that just come into my head, the emotional reactions that I have. Okay, what I experience with myself. I need to be open to that, vulnerable to that. Okay, so that I have that data available. But there's another way of self-access. The other one of self-access is, I can't understand these people. So let me think for a moment. Okay. They're talking about this particular, these people, they lost a child. Their child was killed in an accident. I remember my lawyer one time, and you know, Stuart calls me and he says, Harry, you know, I'm sorry I have not been in touch with you. What's the matter, Stuart? I was backing my car up and I ran over my 2-year-old kid. It really happened. Okay, well, I mean, I've never been through that. All right. But it was a shock. You know, so then where do I go within myself and wanted to relate to what he experienced? You know, do I go to the loss of a parent, the loss of a relative, the loss of somebody that I loved? Okay. The death, I remember the death when I was a kid, the death of a brother of a family that I knew, of a friend of mine. Okay, and the kid had a tumor, and we just got used to this having a tumor. He was in his crib, and then one day he was no longer there, you know, and the shock that was. Well, it's just a little bit of a touch of what this person is experiencing, but can I go into some of my own life experience, my own history, okay, and do I have it accessible to me, including things that are not pleasant, including things that are painful, you know, things where I have failed, things where I have embarrassed myself. Okay, all of that is a resource. These are resources that I can go to say, I think I can find something in myself that can resonate with what this person is telling me. As a therapist, then that makes it possible for me to empathize, makes it possible for me to relate, makes it possible for me to care. Okay. And this is no matter how different this person is, what color they are, what religion they are, okay, what their cultural background is, okay, what part of the United States they come from that we've never been to be able to relate to that human being, can I find something in me that I can open myself up to? Okay, just a little bit of a little insight in terms of the training that we do. We do a training where we're going to get to that, where we ask the therapists to be the students. I'll have them sit up with me in front of their cohort, okay, try to keep the class around 12 people, not too big. And I usually have somebody who works with me, you know, and we ask the person to talk about their particular issues, you know, and we ask them to get into their history. Okay. And well, you know, it's like saying to one of the students, why don't you undress and get naked in front of you know, I'd rather be naked than tell you what I did, you know, last night that I'm very embarrassed about. Well, it's my job to try to help them to be comfortable enough so that they feel safe to talk about it. You know, sometimes I share a little bit of my craziness, and that's easy to do. There are plenty of it. You know, but it's true. You know, to make it possible for them to feel you're not alone in this. Well, they do it. They talk about it, and they feel like I'm the only person that's ever been screwed up like this. Da 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 da. What's the reaction of the other people in the classroom? Because I go through each one and I say, I don't want you to comment on what this person said. I want you to comment on what this brought up for you. Over and over again I hear, oh, I thought I was the only one. Oh, but I thought I was the only one. Oh, I thought I was the only one. Well, my experience was. And we have each student come up and go through the same thing. And what do they begin to find? You know, we have more in common than we thought we had. And we each have our little secrets, and we each have our embarrassments. And we have them talk about that so often in terms of what their issues are and in terms of what comes up for them when they're working with clients, that after a while, okay, it doesn't overwhelm us emotionally. We're able to make reference to some tough experience that we had in our lives, or we're able to go to it within ourselves, okay, as a reference point and use it, okay, without being overwhelmed with anxiety, with shame, with guilt. Okay, yeah, I know that. I've been there. Oh, yeah, why? Yeah, I know that one. You know, and then it becomes that trauma, that failure becomes a resource for us instead of an impediment to the relationship with our clients. So we get used to accepting ourselves and being kind to ourselves and loving ourselves as vulnerable, broken, wounded human beings, okay, like everybody else is, even as we try to engage these things and deal with them and do the best we can with them. These are, our own wounds become our resources. And this is the very thing that's in so many training programs. What they try to do is get into the, get your analysis, do your month-long Virginia Satir, go with Murray Rowan and go with getting resolved the issues with your family, to resolve, to fix, to take care of. I'm saying, yes, you should do that. But you're never going to succeed in doing that perfectly. And the reality is that that very woundedness of yours, that very brokenness of yours, that very insecurity of yours, okay, is now a resource for you. When you're trying to understand from inside how painful it is, how that person who's addicted, why it's so hard for that person to stop. Okay. You were never addicted, maybe, okay, to drugs. Oh, but maybe you were addicted to drink, or maybe you were addicted to sex. Okay. But if you can find something, or candy, if you can find something that you're addicted to, and you say, well, I really shouldn't, but I can't stop. I've stopped 55 times in the last 2 years, Well, then I know something of why it's hard for this person to stop. And I'm not sitting on my high horse saying, oh, I know, why can't this person just stop, their stuff. Well, if you couldn't stop, then can't you understand why they can't stop? You can find something in yourself, okay, that can resonate with their brokenness, but we talk about it so often, and we bring it up with our cases over and over and over again, that it's a resource that's readily available. We do it automatically after a while. Okay, we don't have to go digging for it. And as a therapist, then I can empathize with more people, more readily, more comfortably. And by the way, because I can now be more accepting of myself, when this person brings it up, or when I ask the question in such a way that it feels like it's pretty natural the way he's asking me, it's not an accusatory question, okay, people can talk about it. People can talk with us because what are they feeling from us? He's understanding.